Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have another devotion as we're closing in on the ending of 2 Timothy. Here's 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning in verse 14. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 14. In these shout-outs, these call-outs at the end, we have a unique call-out in verses 14 and 15. I'll tell you why it's unique after we've read it. Alexander the coppersmith did great harm to me. The Lord will repay him according to his works. Watch out for him yourself, because he strongly opposed our words. Now, I'll give you a sneak peek of what we're going to study in greater detail tomorrow, but he says, at my first defense, no one stood by me, but everyone deserted me. This is a painful call out. When he names Alexander the coppersmith, there's a lot of pain around this betrayal. Here's what makes it unique. When Paul called out everybody else, it was for the sake of their restoration or their correction, or even in the worst case scenario where he would call out Hymenaeus and Alexander to be handed over to Satan, it was so that they would be taught not to blaspheme. When he would hand people over to God, it was so that they would be corrected. When we'd hand people over to Satan even, it was so that they would be ready for judgment day. Like, this is the only call out, the only shout out where Paul is handing someone over to the Lord in this case, and there's no hope for redemption. He's just asking for God's discipline upon Alexander if Alexander is a believer, or the wrath of God if Alexander is not a believer. So he's telling his boy, Timothy, to watch out for this guy. Alexander the coppersmith did great harm to me. That's Alex's legacy. Great harm. The Lord will repay him according to his works. This is a unique call out because there's no word about him being taught not to blaspheme, or him being prepared for the day of judgment, or being restored, or anything like that. It's just imprecatory. Like, God, go get him. God, repay him. Only time we see Paul do this, and it's in his final letter. I have this theory that, like, most ministries end in pain and awkwardness. Most of them do. It's true of Paul's ministry. You can hear the pain in it. He doesn't give up. He's actually grateful to be at the finish line. He's ready to be done. He's been ready for some time. He said earlier in his writings, chronologically, when you arrange it, you can see him in Philippi. He's as happy as can be. He's chained up, but he has inexpressible and glorious joy. And now we're here at the end of his ministry, and he's just like, Demas has deserted me. Alexander the coppersmith has done me great harm. Watch out for him. May the Lord deal with him according to what he's done. Right? He's now over it. He's burnt out on people. He's ready to go home and be with the Lord, which he's already said is better by far. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. He has run his race. He has fulfilled his duty. He's being poured out like a drink offering. And when you pour out a drink offering, you can't put it back in the cup. It's like wine being poured out over the offering as prescribed in an Old Testament sacrifice. He's like, I'm that offering. I'm being poured out. I'm done. I'm at the end of the finish line. I have run a good race. I'm proud of what I've done here. And, I'm handing Alexander over to God. May God deal with him according to his works. Why is it scary to be dealt with according to our works? It's because every one of us has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And if we were all dealt with according to our works, we would all face judgment in hell forever. It's scary. It's scary. We've done good things too, but even the good things in us, they're accomplished by Christ. They were prepared by God before us, before time itself. Ephesians chapter 2. God has prepared those good things for us in advance. The good things that are in us are from God. The bad things that we do, that's just our sin nature. That's who we are by nature. And so when we as sinners are dealt with by God according to what we've done, the fair treatment is eternity in hell. I don't know if that's the extent to which Paul is speaking this over Alexander, because I don't know if Alexander's a Christian or not. I know that I've been hurt more by Christians than anybody else in the world. Some of the devil worshipers have been nicer to me than some Christian pastors have been. So that's why I don't rule out the fact that Alexander the coppersmith could also have been a believer. But what I do know is he's telling Timothy to watch out for him. He strongly opposed our words. He was trying to sabotage then with strength and opposition what Paul was teaching. In his context in Ephesus, he's probably countering the gospel of Jesus Christ, probably colluding with Hymenaeus and Philetus, and who knows exactly. It's not specified exactly what it was, but the bottom line is that he has prayed this over Alexander. God, repay him according to his works. We've never seen Paul write like this. It's one of his only imprecatory moments here, and it's not even calling for restoration. So it's just, God, deal with him. Deal with him. And the only reason it's even included in this letter is so that Timothy would be warned. He just didn't want Timothy to be opposed the way that he was. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't know about Alexander the coppersmith, because Paul has handed him over to God. And because he's handed him over to God, he's not harboring it. He's not ruminating over it. He's not stewing on it and just sitting there steaming mad, writing anonymous Facebook posts, trolling Alexander's wall, giving him bad Yelp reviews for his coppersmith business. No, that he's handed him over to God means that he's trusting God to deal with him. You've got to come to this place too. If there's somebody who just seems like utterly beyond redemption and reconciliation with you, let God deal with them. Let God deal with them. Now, are you going to be okay if God's way of dealing with them is bringing them to repentance and restoration? Is that not dealing with them? In fact, I think that's the ideal way. That's the best deal. Sometimes when we think, God, deal with them, what we think God's going to do is just like smite them with disease and pain or something like that. God's not your hitman. It's not how this works. When you say, God, deal with them, you might be surprised. He might deal with Alexander and your Alexanders the way he's dealt with you, which, if you're a Christian watching this devotion, likely means that you've come to repentance from sin and you've been restored. Now, don't be a Jonah and don't be angry when God does that. But if you're going to hand Alexander over to God, that means he's no longer on your hands. You're trusting God to take it and handle it. Paul is more than just airing out dirty laundry. He's warning his protege about this guy. So he's protecting Timothy from the same kind of pain. Who are the Alexanders in your life? They're just trolls. Man, they've just set traps for you. Hand them over to God, warn your kids about them, and just carry on your way. Don't carry bitterness with you. It's one thing to forgive Alexander. Forgive him. But then you got to also, every time the memory of what he's done comes up, know that you've forgiven him. And you truly verify that forgiveness as legitimate when time and time again you forgive and forgive and forgive. Sometimes forgiveness long-term for the Alexanders in our life is like it's like a repetitive process where you know that you've truly forgiven them when you can pray God's blessings over them. In this case, Paul is saying, God, deal with them. May you likewise say, God, deal with them. Hand them over to God, and that means you move forward with your life.